Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Sesh. Welcome back to the channel. In this video, I have a super instructive game for you. We're going to practice calculation, endgame skills, and we're going to get you ready for your next game. We're going to help you get your rating up. So let's jump right into this. Starting this game, d4, d5, c4, queen's gambit, and we get a queen's gambit accepted. Now, I'm super excited to get this line because typically people are keeping things closed here with c6, e6. Instead, we finally get a queen's gambit accepted, and we're striking in the center with e4. My opponent holding onto their pawn, and we're going to chip away. Now, my opponent defends here with the bishop, which is already a step away from theory. Mainline theory has c6 to defend the pawn, but I wasn't sure. I thought maybe this still was theory at the time, but we're going to deal with it. So we trade off, hit the bishop, and my opponent defending. Now I'm going to chip away at this pinned pawn because we're going to have two attackers on this bishop and only one defender. My opponent taking, and we're going to trade off, and we're going to get this super strong bishop on b5 because this diagonal is just way too weak. My opponent covering, we're activating our queen, and we're already in a great position here. Now my opponent playing knight f6, which walks into e5. But here's the thing, guys. This move is super obvious, yet for some reason I did not like the look of knight e4. I didn't want to give him this. It's not a problem. I probably should have. I thought maybe, in some lines we could be running into problems here, but in reality, we need to calculate a little bit deeper. So let's all give this a try. Pause the video, see if you can calculate the winning variation for pawn e5. This is the most forcing move. It's the best move. See if you can calculate 4 moves ahead. Drop it down in the comments if you think you got the winning combination here, and I'll play it out. Ready? So we have pawn e5, knight e4, and then the crushing blow, queen d5. It doesn't look like a fork at first until you realize that you're threatening to take the knight to draw out the queen and win the rook. So say opponent moves the knight, then we have to check, then we're going to pick up. So missed that one, but we're going to learn from it, and we're going to get it next time, guys. So instead of this, I went for a more passive option. I defended my pawn here. And now my opponent opening their bishop for development makes perfect sense. You can see my advantage is slipping away. And I went for kind of a one-move-itis kind of plan where I'm trying to defend this. I'm trying to add pressure to this knight, although it's well defended already. So my opponent developing. And now I finally get around to playing this move, thinking that if we kick out the knight, then he's gonna have a hard time castling, because then we're gonna be able to win this knight. But my opponent goes here, and then I realized I don't want him jumping into my position. So I'm gonna develop my bishop. And I didn't see this one coming. I got hit with this move, which hits my queen, defends the knight, and I basically was forced to liquidate here into an equal endgame. So before we move into the endgame, we are going to see how we're going to win this equal endgame, guys. Don't worry, the game isn't lost yet. Let's think real quick about what we could learn from this continuation, guys. One important key is that if you're trying to add attackers to one weakness, it may not work because your opponent will just add defenders like this all day. So you're not going to be able to get through. But instead, if you can find a way to go from attacking one weakness to now suddenly attacking 2 weaknesses, 3 weaknesses, now your opponent's going to have a hard time holding everything together. Instead of putting all your firepower on one square and just trying to break through on that one well-defended square, see if you can control more weaknesses and go after more targets. That's the way you're going to get through these tactical positions. Not like me, but we're gonna learn from this, guys. So we get to this endgame now, and we both castle, and we're gonna see how we're gonna convert this equal position. First things first, I'm looking to get my knight to a central square. Opponent does the same, and I wanted to have the option to counteract this knight if need be. So I wanted to get my rook involved before I drop my bishop back. So that's exactly what we do. Although my opponent not going for this move, instead going for knight d5. It makes sense. I personally always look for the most active possible squares for your pieces first. But in this case, I guess the knight could be easily attacked and could run into some problems. This is a solid square in the center. It makes sense. So we're going to run our knight to the center as well. Still a completely equal position. Opponent taking over the file. And we're going to infiltrate, attack this pawn, put pressure on this bishop, although it is defended. And my opponent pushes their pawn forwards. Notice they can't push it 2 squares because my bishop is holding. And now I'm already starting to think about jumping my knight in, but at this point I don't want to weaken my pawn structure. So I'm going to hold off on that for now. Instead, I'm going to secure my position. I don't want my opponent infiltrating here. And I'm getting ready to bring my king in. Instead, opponent offers me a trade of rooks. So pause the video, think about it for a second. Should we accept this trade here on their terms? Or should we maybe double rooks or drop our rook back somewhere? So guys, if you had a moment to think about that, we trade rooks here for the simple reason that it forces my opponent to undevelop their knight, wasting time. If they want to bring it back, that'll give us a tempo to move. And it simplifies the position, making it safer to get our king out into the center. That's exactly what happens. Opponent going this way with their knight, trying to hit my pawn. We're in time to defend with our king. So my opponent realizing that they're never going to get this pawn with my king there, rerouting again. And now we have a really nice position for my king. And notice my opponent's king is way off in the corner. So I decide it's finally time to make a play. This is a super static position, and we could be stuck here forever if we don't do anything and end out in a draw. So you have to pick a time when it feels right to go ahead and make a play. So in this case, I'm planning that A, we're going to be hitting this pawn, threatening to take. Can't push it forwards either because my bishop's holding. And if you trade this off, yes, we're getting 2 isolated pawns, but we're also making a pass pawn that's only 3 moves away from promotion. So that's what we go for. And by the way, guys, it is top engine move. So opponent trading off, giving us this pass pawn, meaning there are no pawns stopping this guy from going. Opponent dropping back to blockade the pawn, and we're going to be moving in with our king. Slightly better here to start with this move, but it's okay. Opponent bring their king closer, and then we play this on the next move. Opponent jumping forwards, and now we need to get in with our king. We need to get activity, so we push our pawn forwards. Opponent bringing their king closer, and we get our king in. Better here. Now, this is actually a really instructive moment because there's only, this knight is blocking up this file. There's only really one open file here. And although this move makes a lot of sense, we could save it for the next move. We should take over the file here. It's the best move. Because instead we give our opponent opportunities to take over this file. But they miss that too. They try to get some activity on the queen side here, which I'm happy to trade that off and infiltrate with my king now. Threatening to take. You can't push because you'll lose your knight. If you defend, that's super passive. We're going to be pushing. So opponent trying to defend this way, but we're going to kick out the knight. Win a pawn, because who doesn't like winning a pawn? Opponent defending. And now we have a choice here, guys. In this position, it doesn't really matter, but in other positions, it might. How should we try and defend this pawn? Should we put our rook here? or should we push it forwards to have our bishop defending? Now, guys, you want to follow a principle that says you want to use your least expensive piece to complete a job. So if your bishop can do something like defend this pawn, then you shouldn't use your rook to do it. In this case, it doesn't matter too much, but you can see it is a little bit worse. Because I mean, worst case scenario, if there's some sort of trade, and even if they win my bishop, I'm winning an exchange. And in this scenario, our rook is free to roam versus their knight, and rooks can control much more squares. They're much more active. They can get across the board quick. So we want to leave our rook free if we can. So we push this forward. Sorry. Only one move away from promoting. Notice king has no ways in. My opponent giving a check, but this actually only forces me in the direction that I want to go. My plan here is simply walk over and attack this rook. Opponent sidestepping, and we're going to walk in. Right here. If my opponent tries this, we have a check. So they trade off. Now I'm going to anchor my bishop onto this pawn island, and we'll pick up this isolated pawn, attacking another. And here I thought about just trading, but I don't know. I just wanted to keep everything solid, and I actually overlooked this move, but it is what it is. Trade off, and now I go here. Somewhat counterintuitive because you want to keep your pieces defended here, but after this trade, just look at this control that we have over this fifth rank. The king can't get in. If the king ever tries walking this way, we're just going to be running, and this pawn is gone. And so that leaves the king one option to come in here, and it's just totally defended here. So we get in with our king. Opponent goes here. You could take here, but king takes, he attacks your bishop, and maybe they'll be able to blockade the pawn. So in reality, there's no reason to even take this pawn. You only need one pawn, and with this blockade we have going on here, this pawn is super strong. We get in with our king. We don't go here because you don't want to give them opposition. We go here, force them back, take opposition, force them in the corner. Now we have our path. And let me know, guys, down in the comments right now, what move you playing here? If any of you just said g6, GG's, you just drew a game with mate in 3. So we can't go g6. Always pay attention. You don't want to box in this king. 2 ways to go forwards here. We can burn a move, and then when the king moves, now we have check, check, and mate. That's the fastest variation. In this game, instead, I went for check first with the bishop, and then this is going to be a little bit slower, but we still get there in the end. Alrighty, guys, if you learned something from this video, if you found it instructive, drop a like, subscribe, drop a comment, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.